Welcome to Excel Virtually Global Conference for 2025. I'm super excited to be part of this conference and to bring you this presentation. My name is Abiola David. I'm a Microsoft Fabric MVP and Databricks MVP. In this conference, I'll be presenting on DBT Masterclass leveraging Fabric Warehouse. So, why this topic matters for Microsoft Fabric data engineers? DBT, which is known as Data Build Tool, has become the industry standard for analytics engineering because it allows data engineers to bring software engineering best practices like version control, testing, and modularity into your SQL transformations. And now, with Microsoft Fabric, we can combine the power of DBT with Fabric Warehouse, creating a modern, scalable, and unified platform for analytics. In this presentation, we're going to start off by seeing how we can create Fabric Warehouse, how we can set up DBT using VS Code Editor, how we can create DBT Project Fabric with custom profiles.yml file in the C drive, how we can establish connection to the Fabric Warehouse in the VS Code Editor, modifying DBT project.yml file, creating stage and mat schema, how we can load sample sales CSV files into the raw schema in the Fabric Warehouse, how we can create stage folder and individual.sql files for data transformation of the raw files, how we can create marts folder and individual.sql files for aggregations of the stage data, how we can compile SQL and execute against target warehouse using DBT run, and finally, how we can leverage Microsoft Power BI to report on the data transformation. So let's go ahead and dive into the full practical implementation. This is our sample CSV files. Let's take a look at some of them. I'm going to double click on account managers.csv. And in that file, we've got the account manager's name and account manager's ID. And this is the primary keys that allows you to connect to the foreign keys in the orders fact table. And for the purpose of demonstration, I have embedded a null in the row number 16. So we're going to see how we can take care of that in the stage layer in our DBT project. I'm going to close this for now. And let's take a look at the orders table, which in this case is our fact table. In the orders table, we've got the order ID, order date, ship date, account manager ID, payment type ID, customer ID, products. These are the foreign keys that allows us to connect to the primary keys in the dimension tables. And then we have the unit sold. Again, we've embedded a null in the row number 4. So we're going to be taking care of this in our DBT stage layer. So I'm going to close all of this, and then we have the rest of the files, customers, payment types, and products. I'm going to go ahead and launch my browser. Again, I'm going to be using my Fabric Warehouse, and I've got DBT Masterclass workspace with no item created. I'm going to give this a click, new item, and then I'm going to search for warehouse and click on that. I'm going to call this one sales prod warehouse and click on create. All right, so the sales prod warehouse one is now created. Now we can launch the VS Code editor. Now the first thing we want to do is to create a folder in our local laptop. So I'm going to click on open folder. Alternatively, I can click on the file and I click on open folder. Now I'm going to point to my VS Code workspace where I actually house all my VS Code projects, and I can see I've got no item here. I'm going to right click and create a new folder. And I can give this whatever name I like. I'm going to call this one Fabric DBT Project. And once I'm done, I'm going to press enter to commit and make sure this is clicked upon. And I'm going to select that folder, and that's going to be launched in the VS Code editor. Now, we have nothing in this Fabric DBT project. Now, we need to initialize the instance of DBT. To do that, I'm going to launch a terminal. So click on this terminal at the top, and then I'm going to create a new terminal. Before I do that, I'm going to issue dbt-help, and we can see all the commands and everything you need to know about dbt. So dbt-h. So as soon as that executes, we can see all the commands and explanation of what each of them are doing. So we can see we have this clean, clone, compile, debug, depth, and so on and so forth, and the init. So the init initializes a new dbt project. So I'm going to at the bottom click or press clear to clear the contents. Now we need to create a dbt project and I'm going to start by issuing DBT in it and press enter. As soon as I click on that, I'm going to see the arrival of the log file, which allows us to automatically see our .dbt in our C drive. So we can see that we need to provide a name for our project. I'm going to call this one Fabric DBT project. You can use whatever name you like, and I'm going to press enter. And as soon as I press enter, we can see DBT with all of the DBT directories, subdirectories. We can see the analysis, macros, models, seeds, snapshot, tests, and very importantly, the dbt underscore project.yml. Now I'm going to come to this later on. So at the bottom here, we can see API modeling, and then we're asked to provide the name of our database that we would like to use. In this case, we want to use Microsoft Fabric. So I'm going to type in number 2 and press enter. And then we have this no sample file found for Microsoft Fabric. So we need to actually create the specifically. So for that, I'm going to come to my C drive. So click on this. And then I want to go to the C drive. I want to go to the users. I want to click on my name. And then we can see the .dbt, which was created just about 1 minute or less ago. And today is the 17th of June 2025. Double click. In my .dbt, I'm going to right click and I want to create a new text document. And I'm going to get rid of all of this name. I'm going to call this one profiles. So we want to use profiles.yml, that's .yml. And then we can say if you change a file name extension, the file might become unusable. So are we sure you want to make this change? Of course, we're sure. So click on yes. And this automatically shows the notepad icon. And I'm going to double click and paste. So we have all of this configuration that we need to supply. So first, we need to provide the name of our DBT project. So whatever is the name you have here is the name that we have to provide it. So for this, I'm just going to actually get rid of all of this placeholder and type in fabric underscore DBT underscore project. Now, by the way, you cannot use, even when you're creating your project name, you cannot use fabric dash DBT dash project. No, it's not going to work. You can put them together as a single word or separate them with underscores. So this is the right procedure. And then for the target, I'm going to leave this fabric dev. And then for the output, we need to supply the authentication. So we're going to be using the CLI, and then we're going to provide the name of our database. I'm going to stick with this default open database connectivity driver 18 for SQL Server. The 17 will also work, but this is fine. And then I'm going to provide the name of my host, as well as maintaining the schema.dbo, maintaining the threads for, and the type is going to be fabric. Let's go ahead and provide the name of the database. I'm going to come to my browser, and then I want to click on this. So the name of the database is the name that you use to create your warehouse. So copy that to the clipboard, and I want to select this placeholder, Control V to paste, and then I want to click on this SQL endpoint, and I can see the SQL connection string. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, and I want to get rid of this placeholder connection string and paste. And I'm going to press Ctrl S to save. So I'm going to be creating DBO underscore raw, DBO underscore stage, DBO underscore mat layer. So make sure this is not touched. Press Ctrl S to save again, and I can close this. Now I'm going to come to my VS Code. Now we've set up our profile, but we need to actually authenticate to be sure that it's actually matching what we've got in the DBT underscore project. Now in this case, we've got quite a lot of comments, which can be a bit confusing. I'm going to get rid of some of the comments, so get rid of this. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom a little bit, and there are some here. Now I'm going to give explanation of this in a moment, and let me just get rid of this. Now I'm going to come to the bottom and issue DBT debug. Now when I issue DBT debug, this is going to throw an error because the DBT underscore project.yml will not be found, because we're actually running this DBT outside our fabric underscore DBT project. So I'm going to just press Ctrl Enter to run, and let's see the error. So you can see dbt underscore project.yml file returned an error, but we are able to see the dbt and the profiles.yml that we created. So what we need to do is to cd into this specific fabric underscore dbt project. Now I'm going to click or type in clear to clear the content, and then we can see at the top. I'm going to type in cd, and I'm going to type in the name of my dbt project, which is fabric underscore dbt underscore project, and press enter. So I can go on and issue the DBT debug to authenticate, because now I can see in the DBT underscore project.yml, we've got the name of our project, which is also found on the name of our profiles.yml. And then we have all of these models, parts, models, analysis, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to come here and issue DBT debug command and press enter. Now, this is going to actually give us a successful connection to our Fabric warehouse. So everything are found, and it's going to return all checks passed. Cool. Let me just scroll up a little bit. So we can see we have the profiles.yml, which is okay and it's valid. And then we have this dbt underscore project.yml, which is this one here. It's also found and valid. And then for the required dependencies, of course, I've got Git installed. So you need to have that installed also. And then I can see for the connection, I can see the server, the string, I can see the name of the database, and then we have the authentication CLI. And at the bottom, I want to make sure that you see the connection test, okay, connection okay, and all checks pass. That is wonderful. Now I'm going to come back to this dbt underscore profiles.yml. Now in our case, I'm going to be using the dbt seed to load our files into our warehouse as tables. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. Now, when you launch or create a DBT project, you automatically see this example, which is actually pointing to the models in this place. So I'm not going to follow all of this. I'm going to delete this because I'm going to create the whole thing by creating the stage and the mart models. Models are basically SQL that we write to perform data cleaning, transformation, and so on. So I'm going to come here. First, let me just undo the seed. I'm going to type in at the bottom here seed and press enter. Now for the seed, I'm going to specify the schema. So plus schema and press enter. And I can see null. So I'm going to provide the name of the schema. I'm going to type in raw. What it's going to do is that as soon as we issue dbt seed, after loading our files into this location, the DBT will automatically create a new schema in our Fabric warehouse, which is going to be named DBO. Now, the DBO is going to be picked up from the schema that we define here, which is DBO. So we're going to have DBO underscore whatever is the name of our schema for the seed. So I'm going to press Ctrl S to save. And also, since we're going to be creating our stage and mart, I'm going to come to the bottom here and I can see these are under my models. So I want to create the stage. So type in stage and I'm going to just put in a colon and press enter, tab key. And then I'm going to do plus and I'm going to provide the name of the schema. So for the schema, I'm going to call this one stage. And I'm going to do the same thing for the mart. Now, it doesn't matter. I can put the mart at the bottom. I can put it at the top. It's still going to work. So I'm going to type in mart. Now, the mart is going to be the gold layer in Medallion architecture. The stage is going to be the silver layer. So mart, and I can come here and use the plus sign, or let me just call this one schema. And then for the schema, I'm going to call this one mart. Okay. So we have the raw, the stage, and then the mart. Now I'm going to give this a save. So again, when we start creating our models, this simply means that DBT will automatically create DBO dot underscore stage and then DBO underscore mart for each of the layers. But we are done with this seed. Now let's go ahead and load our files into the seed section. So I'm going to open my files and let me just minimize this. And I'm going to press Ctrl A to select all the files. I'm going to drag and drop in the seed and I can see all the files: account managers.csv, customers.csv, orders.csv, payment types.csv, products.csv. Cool. Now let me just move this up a little bit and then dbt seed. So as soon as I press enter, we'll see what happens, that all the files will be ingested into the DBO underscore raw schema that will be created automatically, and we can go to the Fabric warehouse to verify. Awesome. Completed successfully. So we can see we have this start seed file DBO underscore raw. As I've mentioned, this was created automatically, and then we have account manager, customers, orders, payment type, and then we can see the size of the files. We have 15 records inserted, 13 records, 20 records, and we have 2,400 records in the customers and 2,401 in the orders. Let's go ahead and check this out. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to close this for now. So I'm going to give this a refresh and expand the schemas, and then we can see the DB underscore raw schema created as I've mentioned, and expand. Now this is going to be under the tables, and we can see all the 5 tables: account managers, customers, orders, payment types, products. Let's just open them up to preview the content of the tables. So we can see them opening up. So we have the account manager with the 2 columns, customers with the customer ID, customer name, city, postal code, in, and so on and so forth. The orders, which is our fact table, the payment type, and the products. So they're able to successfully load all the data into the raw layer of our DBT project, which is cool. Now, I want to come back to the VS Code. I'm going to come to the models. Now, as I've mentioned, models are SQLs that we use to perform data transformation, cleaning, and aggregations. So I'm going to right click on these models. I've deleted the default examples, so I'm going to right click and create a folder. I'm going to name the folder stage. Now you want to make sure that the name tallied with exactly what you have here, so I'm going to type in stage, and let me just move on. So you want to make sure that you are having the same spelling here on both sides, and I'm going to right click and create a file, and I want to start off by just performing my data cleaning and transformation. So I want to type in stg underscore, let's start with the account managers. So account underscore managers, and then you want to type in .sql because this is a SQL file. Press enter, and I'm going to right click on the stage again, create a new file, stg underscore, let's move to the customers .csv, .sql, and press enter, and I'm going to right click on the stage, create a new file, and let's call this one stg underscore orders .sql, and I'm going to right click, create a new file, and call it stg underscore payment underscore types .sql, and let me just correct the spelling, press enter, and I want to move to the next one. Click on the create a new file, and then this is going to be stg, that is the stage underscore products .sql. So we've created all of these, but these are not in our Fabric warehouse because we've actually not issued the DBT run to run all of this. So I'm going to come to the stg underscore account managers. Now I'm going to just, for the sake of verification, write the select star from, and I want to check the content of the table. Now I'm going to provide the fully qualified name, that is the name of the warehouse, the name of the schema, as well as the name of the table. So I'm going to come back here, and I can see the name of the warehouse is this. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste dot, and the name of the schema is dbo underscore raw. So I'm going to type in dbo underscore raw, that's the raw stage dot, and the name of the table is account managers underscore managers, and I'm going to select the code and press Ctrl Enter to run, and it's going to automatically kick off the DBT core at the bottom. And once that is sorted, as we can see, I'm going to click on this to execute query, and I'm going to choose my cornerstone connection and wait for the code to execute. Amazing. So we can see the 2 columns, the account manager and the account manager ID, and we can go on and perform whatever transformation we need to, but in this case we just want to get rid of this null at the bottom. So I can use the where clause. I'm going to say where. Now I want to pick the account manager column, so account manager is not null, and I can select all the code, press Ctrl Enter to get rid of that. Now this is just a simple transformation just to show you how we perform data transformation in the stage layer of the DBT. So this is going to give us all the names of the account manager and the IDs excluding the null. That's cool. Now I'm going to copy the name of the table, and let's come to the customers. So I'm going to select star from the fully qualified name, and I'm going to call this one customers. That's the name of the table. Select the code, Control Enter to run, and you can see all the columns in the customers table. Now, in our case, we're not going to be using all the columns, so we just want to select some of the columns that we'll probably need for our reporting. So we can see the customer ID, customer name, city, postal code, email, gender, and qualification. So let's say we just want to pick the customer ID, and I want to pick the customer name, and let's want to focus on qualification also. So I'm going to type in qualification, and let me just space this and Control A, Control Enter to run the code. Amazing. So we have all the 3 columns selected. So let's move to the next staging table. I want to copy this, and let's come to the orders. In the orders, I'm going to select star from, and I'm going to paste, and I can get rid of this and call this on orders, and I can control enter after selecting the codes, and we can see all our columns in the orders fact table. Amazing. So we have the order ID to the unit. First, let's take care of this null that we embedded just for demonstration. So I'm going to say where I can pick the order ID column. So order ID is not null, and let's select the code again and run just to take care of that null. And this is just a piece of data cleaning and transformation. All right, so that's gone. Now when you look at the order date and the ship date, we have this day, month, and the year. This is actually going to be regarded as a string in the warehouse. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to come here and let's see the orders table. Like you can see, this has been treated as order date, as a string, and as a string. So we need to transform the data by converting the order date into a proper recognizable date format, that is the year, the month, and the day. So I'm going to come back here, and to do that, let me just get rid of this star, and let's select the order ID column first. So I'm going to type in order ID, comma, and I'm going to use the convert function for this. And for the convert function, I'm going to specify the data type, that's the date, and then I'm going to specify the name of the column, the order date. Now I'm going to use 103, signifying the style that is unique to date formatting in UK and in France. And I'm going to come outside and use the as, that is the alias, and I'm going to call this one order date. I want to maintain the same name, put in a comma, press enter. Now I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to use the same thing for the ship date. So I just want to modify this and call it ship date, and again I'm going to call this one ship date. All right, so that's sorted. Now I'm going to get rid of this comma, and then we can select this code and press Control Enter to run, just to see the three columns first. All right, so you can see that this has been transformed to what is recognized in SQL Server. We have the year followed by the month and then the day. That's working fine. So now let's just bring all the rest of the columns. So the orders are account manager ID, payment type ID. So I'm going to type in account manager ID, comma, payment type ID, and the next should be customer and product. So customer ID, comma, and product ID. So you want to make sure that you type in accurately so that you don't get an error. So let me just move this down, and we can select all the codes, Control Enter, just to run it and see whether we do not have any error in the typing. Okay, brilliant. So everything is working as expected. Now I'm going to just copy this again, and let's move to the payment type. So let's write a simple select star from payment type, and I can get rid of this and call this on payment underscore types, and select the code and press Ctrl Enter, and then we should be able to see all the two columns. Now this doesn't need any transformation. So after that, I'm going to copy the code again and move to the last table, which is the products. So again, select star from Ctrl V, and then I can call this on products, and select the code, press Ctrl Enter, and let's check if there's a need for any transformation that we need to perform. All right, so we don't have any transformation. Everything's looking good as expected. Now we need to go ahead and write this by using the DBT run to load into the DBO underscore stage schema that will be created automatically. So I can swipe back to the terminal, and I want to make sure I'm also within this place. Let me just clear this content first. Okay, so I can issue the DBT run, and when I press Ctrl Enter, now this might return an error because I can see that I've not actually pressed Ctrl S to save. So you can see this actually telling me nothing to do. Try checking your model configs and model specification. So you want to make sure that you save. That's the reason why I'm getting this error anyway. So come to this file and click on Save All, and that's been saved. Now I can issue that DBT run again, and this would work. Amazing. So you can see completed successfully, and then we can see this was automatically created as a amazing. So this completed successfully. So we can see we have this start SQL view. Now these are created as views, not tables or incremental or ephemeral. So we can say model db underscore stage dot stg account manager stg customers and so on and so forth. And I can come back and give this a refresh. So I'm going to close this db underscore raw and expand the db underscore stage and expand the views, and then we have this stg underscore account managers, stg underscore customers, and so on. Now I'm going to create a new SQL query and let's check the stg underscore order so that we can see whether the order date and ship date were interpreted as correct date data type. So let's just perform select star from tg dot and let's point to the orders and select the code and just run it, and there we go. So we have this order date being interpreted and the ship date as proper date. Now when you go to the raw where we actually not perform any transformation, you can see that this is still maintaining the string, the text, but now we have something that is meaningful where we can see clearly as views under the dbo stage. Okay, that's wonderful. Now we want to go back to the VS Code editor. Now we want to create another folder, and it's going to be our marts. Now the marts is known as the gold layer in the medallion architecture. So, and this is where we can perform our aggregations, whereby we can create the Power BI report on top of them. So I'm going to come to these models, not this stage, because this is going to be a different entity. Right click and create a folder, and I want to call this one marts. Again, we want to make sure that the spelling, the math corresponds to what you've got in this dbo underscore project.yml file. So we want to make sure it corresponds. Now I'm going to right click and then create a file, and I'm going to call this one transaction underscore details.sql. Now I can use whatever name you like, it doesn't matter, just make sure it ends with .sql and press enter. Now I'm going to move this down a little bit. Now we can use our CTE to perform our aggregation. So I'm going to type in wait, and I can give this one transaction data and use the ASCII keyword, open the brackets, and now we can go on and select our columns. So select star. So first, let me just come back to the warehouse. Now we want to select the order ID. So I'm going to type in o.order ID. Now this O is the alias that we are prefixing to the order ID column, and we want to put in a comma, and let's select, let me just come to the other columns. Yeah, let's select the customer, some customer informations like the customer name and their qualification. So that should be enough. So I'm going to type in c dot customer name. You want to make sure that you type it accurately and put in a comma, and then c dot qualification. All right, and that's detected, comma, and let's move to the other tables, payment type. Let's select the payment type column. So I'm going to type in pt for payment type dot payment type as the name of the column. Now you want to make sure that you select the accurate one, not this ID. We don't need the ID, we need the specific payment type name. Put in a comma, and let's move to the products. So we want to select the product name. So I'm going to type in p dot products, and now the name is product, not products. You want to make sure that you type in correctly, and then we also want to select the account manager. So a dot account manager, that's the name of the column. Now we want to move to performing our aggregation. So we want to compute revenue, and revenue is going to be the unit multiplied by price minus unit multiplied by cost. So for that, I'm going to type in the sum aggregate function, and I'm going to type in o.units because the unit is located in the orders table. So multiply by p.price, and I'm going to come outside and use the minus, and I can open the bracket, and then I'm going to type in again o.units. You want to make sure it is correctly typed. Multiply by p.price. This is going to be cost, not price. And then, oops, and I'm going to come in and use the alias, and I'm going to call this one revenue. And let's also probably add the total units. So I'm going to use the sum function, and I want to type in the o.units, and I'm going to call this one as total units. All right, put in a comma. Now we have all the calculations. By the way, when you come here, you can see we have the price and the cost columns in the product table, and then we have the unit in the orders table. So this is fine. Now we can just press enter and then we can provide the name of the table. In DBT, if you want to reference a table name from your stage, we have to use called the two curly brackets and two space, and I'm going to use the ref that I want to reference a column from another a table from another stage. So I'm going to open the brackets and inside the single quote I want to point to the orders. So this is how to reference, and then I want to make sure I come back here and use the O that we used to alias the columns from that orders table, and then I'm going to just press enter and use the backspace, and I want to use the inner join. Now, again, open the two curly brackets, two space, and I'm going to type in the ref, open the brackets, single quote, and then we want to reference the customers table. So this is going to be STG. This is actually STG. Should be referencing STG table, just like what we had here. And in here, I'm going to type in inside the single quote STG open underscore customers. All right, and then I'm going to type in C that we use as the alias for the columns coming from that table, and then we can use the on keyword to bind the customer ID from the two tables. So I'm going to use on keyword, and then I can start by typing O dot customer ID equals to C dot customer ID. Now this is the foreign key and this is the primary key in the two tables, and don't forget this is actually coming from the dimension table customers and this coming from the orders fact table. And I'm going to press enter and use another join, and again two curly brackets, and then I want to use the ref, open the bracket, single quote. Now I want to move to payment type, so I'm going to type in STG underscore payment type, and then I want to use the PT as the alias we use at the top, and then we can use the on keyword to bind the customer payment and the payment type ID from the two columns. So I'm going to type in O dot payment type ID equals to PT dot payment type ID. So I'm going to type payment type ID, and that's sorted. And then we can move to the next join, again two curly brackets, and then we can use the ref. Now it's actually much easier if you're able to follow this syntax. Now this can be so unfamiliar for you, but it's actually not so difficult. So just make sure that you open the two curly brackets on both sides. Okay, so inside the single quote, now we want to reference the payment. So STG underscore let's do product first. I'm going to type in STG underscore products. So you want to make sure that the typing the name correspond to whatever you have here, and then this is going to be P, and we can use the on keyword O dot product ID. So it's product ID equals to P dot product ID. So I'm going to type in products. Okay, and then we can move to the next or the last one. So again, two square brackets, and they want to type in the ref in lowercase, open the bracket, single quote, and they want to call the STG for the account managers. So select this, and then we can use the A that we used at the top here, and use the on keyword, and this is O dot account manager equals to A dot account manager ID. So we're focusing on the two IDs. And then we can use the group by clause. So we're going to be grouping by all these columns in our select, excluding our aggregation. So I want to copy all of this and I want to paste it, and make sure you get rid of this comma. It's really important. So this is our common table expression just to perform some aggregation. Now I'm going to come to the bottom and we just want to select everything that this city is delivering. So select star from, and I'm going to go to the very top and copy the city name, which is transaction underscore data, and come to the bottom, Ctrl V, select all the code and press Ctrl Enter to run. All right, so I'm getting invalid column name unit. So I'm going to actually come back to the STG underscore orders, and it appears that we missed units as part of the column to be selected. So you can see that's not part of it. So I'm going to just put in a comma and press enter, and I'm going to type in units. All right, so I'm going to type in units, and as soon as that is typed, it's really important I click on save all. So click on that. So now we've made a modification to this stg underscore orders. So what do? I can come back to the terminal. Now don't forget, we've got some code in the mat, but we want to rerun all the tables in the stage. So I'm going to come to the terminal and use what's called DBT run, and I can use dash dash select, and then I'm going to provide the name of the layer that we want to run. So dash dash, just provide the stage. So this simply means all the SQL files in this stage models will be executed. So press enter. So by running that, I'm actually excluding running this transaction underscore details in the mat of the models. So you can see this now executed. I'm going to come back to my browser, and when I come to, let me just quickly come to the stg underscore orders. So I'm going to come to this stg orders. So you can see that that's missing. Okay, so I'm going to refresh, and once we refresh, we should be able to see the unit added. So again, I'm going to give this a refresh, and let me open it again by coming to the new query, and then we can select star from dbo underscore stage dot the orders, and then we can control enter to run. And then when I scroll to the right, you can see the unit is now back. Awesome. So when I come back to the DBT and then I'm back here, so when I run this again, I shouldn't get the error that I saw not too long. Okay, so I'm going to control A to select the code, control enter to run the code. Amazing. So you can see that we have our result in this query result pane. Awesome. So we have the total unit, the total revenue, the order ID, customer name, and then we can use this data for our reporting. So now we have executed this, but we need to actually write this also into our warehouse. So I'm going to come to the terminal, and in the terminal, I want to make sure that there's nothing to be saved. I can issue dbt run, and I can do dash dash select, and I want to run whatever file is in this mat. So I'm going to type in mat, and this is going to exclude running all the files in the stage of the models. So I'm going to press enter. Now this is how you can be specific on what you want to execute, and once this succeed, this is going to automatically create the dbu underscore mat schema for us, and sure enough, it's succeeded. So we can say completed successfully. I'm going to come back to my warehouse, and I'm going to give this a refresh. Now I'm going to close this, and we can see the dbu underscore mat, and when I expand, I can see under the views. Now I'm going to give this another refresh, and so that it can sync in. There we go, transaction details. Awesome. So we can see we have the result. We have the order ID, customer name, qualification, payment type, product, account manager, total unit, and revenue. And we've got 8 columns and 2,400 rows. Now we can go ahead and build our Power BI report. To do that, I'm going to click on the reporting tab and click on new report, and I'm going to click on manage default Power BI semantic model, and I'm going to expand this schema, and I'm going to expand the view, and you can see the transaction underscore details. Give this a click, and that's selected, and click on confirm. And this is going to start launching the Power BI service where we can build our report. Amazing. We have this untitled. Now we can see the transaction here. Now let's see the total revenue by the product, and there we go. I can see this automatically created a clustered column chart. I can create this also using the table or matrix visual, and then we can see the result. Now to apply the currency formatting, I'm going to just press Ctrl S to save. Let me call this one report, and I'm going to save in the same workspace. I'm going to come back here, and then I want to go to the model layout, and I want to look for that specific view. So that should be transaction details. So click on that, and then I want to expand and go to the revenue where we have to apply the formatting, and then we can see under the properties, I'm going to scroll down to the format, and then this is actually using the O number data type formatting. I'm going to switch to currency, and once that is done, I can come back to my Power BI reports, and there we go. We can see the currency formatting, and then the sum of revenue is 566,935,400. And this completes our DBT masterclass. So we've seen from the beginning how we can set up the necessary connections, how we can load the data into the raw layer, how we can also transform in the stage layer, how we can also perform aggregation in the marts layer, and then how we are able to serve to create our Power BI report for decision making. So this is how we can architect this solution. So we've come to the end of this amazing DBT masterclass leveraging Fabric Warehouse. I trust you enjoyed this video presentation, and I want to encourage you to watch the presentation of other speakers and keep on learning, keep on being the best of yourself. And thank you so much. Bye bye for now.